magical group. Okay, so we wanted to get together because it's been a while, and I love the perspectives that each of you bring. And so I'm going to bring up some questions that Ace had posed in our group. I'm going to let him kind of lead so we can truly understand what the meaning is behind some of these questions. And then we'll kind of tap into how we resonate with it. Does that sound good with you guys?
So basically, this is the scenario that went down. Heather and I have been in a relationship together now for about 1.5 years. She has a 13-year-old daughter that I'm slowly building a relationship with. I don't have kids myself. I never even was really around kids. So all of a sudden, I just thrust myself into a situation where I'm finding myself as a parental figure, and I'm having to learn on my toes, so to speak. We've bonded, but not really, because we're both awkward with each other. It's just what it is naturally. Because it's like a respect thing, I think, as well. I kind of enjoyed how long it's taken to build a bond with her. It's earned. And so for me, it just means a lot more. And we finally went shopping together. We went Christmas shopping together for Heather, and it was just me and her. And we've never really done too much, just us two together. So it was a special time for me to be able to do that with her, and we ended up buying some gifts for Heather at Walmart. And then we came home, and I had this inkling, I had this knowing to tell her, hey, can you please put it in the closet, but she's 13 years old, and I'm really trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, and try to give her the ability to kind of prove me wrong or prove me right or whatever, So I didn't say anything. And she just kind of took the gifts and threw them on the couch and didn't even think about it. And then Heather comes down, and there's Heather's gifts just there right on the couch. And so I think what happened with me was, in the moment, I got really hurt. I got pretty upset about it. First of all, because it was the gift that I had gotten for her. So it was just mine, and I got in my ego about it, and I got hurt, and I felt accosted, and I felt, this whole thing. And I tried to keep my cool and like downplay how I felt about it and stuff like that. But then when I went downstairs in the basement, like I saw it again, and it was just it was like not even an effort, right? Like not even an effort was made to try to hide it, conceal it. I got a little upset with her, and I explained to her, this hurt my heart, and I didn't really know why it hurt me so bad. It was just like, in my head, it's just a complete lack of effort, selfishness, like all these different things that these things we can come up with, and then put them on me as, oh, you did this to me and this and that. And so I was really upset about it. Like I was pretty upset about it. And that's why I decided to just put it on Telegram into our group and just explain to everyone what I just went through. And basically the questions I asked, taking it perspective from my situation and moving into like a New Earth topic, right? As New Earth leaders, right? And my question was like, where do we draw the line basically between allowing people to be who they are, even if it could hurt us, even if it isn't right to us, even if it isn't correct, and all these things, like when do we go at them and kind of help guide them and try to teach them a different way? And it's kind of like, what made me not really want to be on this planet my whole life is the lack of courtesy of the general humanity, the lack of manners, the lack of like really give a shit about anything or anyone. And I feel like I felt like the way I looked at New Earth is I would hope that we could build something where people would care about one another. And like, it's such a small scenario like that, but to me that speaks volumes in terms of like thought process, in terms of like what matters and what doesn't matter. But then as I talked to y'all, and then Josh sent me a really great response, basically telling me that, you might be projecting here a little bit, and you might be hurt, in certain ways, and then taking it too personal. And we know like one of the 4 agreements, which is one of my favorite books, is don't take things personally. And so he just gave me this really great response, and it got me thinking. It's like, what if the point of Earth is to have those things, to have those people without manners, to have those people without courtesy, so that you can learn unconditional love, so that you can learn to be courtesy anyway, to have manners anyway, just because somebody else does something. So that's kind of like the scenario with the whole thing. It was just it's about manners, it's about courtesy, and how does this look like for New Earth? And will this have it in New Earth, or will it be New York City?
Yeah. Well, like Heather, why don't you respond? Well, I'd like to know what your response was being on the other end of that, and then how you feel in those circumstances, like where someone may have not been courteous of somebody's, gift to somebody that is supposed to be a surprise, and then it gets revealed and they don't seem to really care that they participated in it.
Yeah. So I honestly didn't see it the first time when I went downstairs. It was one of those back pillows.
Oh.
And so I just thought it was one of the girls's, and then I put the pieces together the next time I saw it. And I didn't say anything because I knew how disheartening that is to have a surprise ruined when you want to give someone something that you love and it's ruined. So I wanted him to make sure that his feelings were completely valid for being hurt. It's okay that you're hurt, that happened. Teaching my daughter that though something like that might not necessarily matter to you, that if I saw your gifts, it mattered to him. And if you could just maybe apologize to him for not thinking of his feelings. And that's the teaching moment I did for her. And she did end up apologizing to you.
What was your perspective of the whole thing? Because I'm like this 65-year-old, like mature, and then I became a 6-year-old again in like a matter of a second. It's impressive. It's an art.
I just feel that you were valid in how you felt. But I would say, quote unquote, hot on her, I guess. I do expect a lot out of her, maybe more than I should. But because I have done that, she is a pretty good child.
She's a very good
I
kid.
mean, she's kind to people. She's
has manners.
She's manners,
Just not with me. It's fine.
Yes, you should have said, make sure you put this away. And so
I didn't trust my inner knowing, and I think that's what Josh was saying. And I'm not going to speak for him because I really want him to express like what he said. But basically, was you knew you needed to say something, and you didn't do it. So you're mad at yourself more than you're mad at her, and it's just being projected onto her because you didn't trust her knowing.
And what I want to say too to this is, I believe in New Earth there should be, a courteous thing, but it shouldn't be a forced thing, right? Like, I feel that it's got to a point in society where you're forcing apologies instead of sitting there with your kids and explaining why you apologize and feel bad for something you may have done to hurt somebody. It's hard to explain. Like, when you hurt someone's feelings, there should be something there within you that is also upset that you hurt their feelings, because as a person, you should never want to hurt anybody. But at the same time, you still got to be you, right? And so there's that fine line that I have concluding with, which is why we wanted to bring this to the group.
Yeah. Well, Josh, can I ask you, as supporting ACE in this matter, what are your perspectives on this topic, and or do you have any experiences with family members that you feel like this comes up?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I heard right away was, like you were saying, it's you thought you should say something, but you didn't, and I've got way too much experience with that, where you see something coming, you don't do anything about it, then it happens, and then like you're all pissed off. And it could be something as simple as, hey, you should probably move that. Me telling myself I should move that because you're gonna kick it. Don't move it. Next thing you know, you kick it and make a mess, and then you're just mad at yourself. But when it's dealing with other people, we have this tendency to automatically blame that other person. And where's the ownership of, if you knew it was coming and then it happened, your expectations were met, so why are you surprised and why are you angry? So I think the biggest part of it for me was, again, it's all about the expectations. I mean, did you expect them to do something? Yeah. Would you communicate it? No. Well, and then you expected something bad was going to happen, and it happened. So when I first talked to him, I was like, think about, like, just go back and examine all the different expectations you had and your responses to expectations, either were actually happening and then not happening, and just kind of take a look at what happened in that regard.
And I responded with, I obviously agree with all his perspectives, still a bit heated in that time. And I responded with, but how do we cultivate new earth tendencies into the younger generations, so that when we do transition into a new way of being, whatever that means, right? New age fluff talk, then we all kind of have the same mentality when it comes to courtesy and giving a shit and manners and things like that. But again, that's expectations. And so I just wanted to get everybody, I really wanted that to be the kind of foundation to this questions discussion, is in where do we draw the line? I think this is how I asked Josh, like, where do we draw the line between accepting people for who they are and accepting people for who they are and still trying to get them to become better? But who determines who's better? See how it's a really slippery slope.
Yeah. Well, let's see what everyone connects with. I mean, some people have children, some people don't. Yeah, let's have
Nicole's like, I know.
Nicole jump in.
I just thought of something too. So I think that something that resonated with me is that we all, as humans, as individuals, are I say this often, teachers and learners of each other. Like, no matter what the stage is, no matter what the age, whatever the circumstances, we're all teaching and learning from each other. And as long as we allow the space for another to speak whatever they're feeling, allowing that space, and possibly maybe not learning or teaching, it may or may not happen, but allowing someone to have the space to speak and realize and understand that their point is just as valid as yours, even if you're not going to agree, right? That's kind of what we're saying. But the fact that we are teachers and learners, but we can only drop a seed to go so far, and then you're just like beating the dead horse at the end. So you literally, in my opinion, you can drop the seed maybe once, but it's up to their watering to really flourish that. But the fact that you get the ego in the way at that point sounds like it's more something that internally may need to be worked on instead of like a whole. But at the same time, understanding though that we all have a part in whatever is happening, and recognizing that regardless if we feel like you should have said something, yes, you should have, but also we all have a part in it, and understanding that as a whole, but allowing the space to have that conversation, to be able to, this is how I felt, this is how, maybe you didn't see it, but I just have to tell you how I feel. And maybe they learn something, maybe they don't, but that I feel like is something that should, as going forward, happen in all conversations. If there's any disagreement, it's just another perspective to the whole. So yeah, that's my input.
I like that.
How about you, Laura? Especially with having a young child, maybe share a little bit about how you would, I have something I want to share too, also, because I have young kids, but how your connection with your parenting your child in a way, in circumstances where maybe I don't know what your expectations are, but something maybe along the lines of this, and maybe even in other relationships.
With children, I don't assume that they know how to do anything up until like 21. Seriously, like I just don't assume that they know. And I wouldn't actually, this is a growing practice of mine, or assume that what I think someone's expectations are exactly what their expectations are. Now when I interact with people and we get into a situation where someone might have expectations of me, I have a habit of clearly communicating to them what I actually will do. And what I expect them to do. And then we have a little mini negotiation that takes like 5 minutes. And then we reveal if there is something different in that. This comes up in technology all the time. Like, for instance, my email signature says, I only check my email for an hour a day. If you didn't get a response, you're going to get it the next day or the day after that, whatever takes the time to get to it. Those are the expectations. I am not an instantaneous email responder. And because I work with a lot of clients, this is a very clear conversation the first time I start working with them. Because I find in technology, there's a lot of assumptions about what the expectations are of what we are going to do. And it's a very small, petty example, but actually these really small, petty examples are where we see where we can practice this, right?
I love that. I'm going to write that down because that's very helpful when you have people that want to be in touch with you.
Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff I do like that. I tell people all the time, I tell my clients, I say, I'm probably just going to call you if you text me 3 times, like our text message has turned into, I'm probably
Right.
just going to call you, and you should expect me just to call you at that point. It's just, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and like I ask people, I'm like, first line of the email when you want a response. Like, I'm not, you will be at the mercy of my timeline if you do not give me a timeline. Which my timeline could be 2 years from now. Like, I'm very clear. Man, you know, Connor and I had this whole thing because he was raised in the South. And when he lived with us with Diana, there was a lot of stuff about respect and manners. And I have an 8-year-old. She's 8 now. And many times I would look at him and I would go, oh, we do not force Diana to say thank you or you're welcome. We model, like I model. And I ask her if it would feel good to express some gratitude. But my hope as a parent is that it will come from her heart. And my knowing as a human is that I am not trying to form or check off boxes about what my daughter will be. I have faith that she will be a human. And a human is inherently good, and a human inherently cares about the person that they're interacting with. So it's just as they're growing up, things are crazy. And they inherit stories just like we do. I also don't expect to not have my child end up with some inner child wounds that I accidentally perpetuated, you know? So, but my philosophy in general as a parent is that I have faith that humans are good and Diana will be good. As long as I continue to be my most authentic self around her. And so, Ace, what you did was you were authentic and you said, wow, that hurt. However, I would say the invitation for you in that moment, the invitation for you was that you weren't 100% authentic because you didn't say the thing.
100%.
You know, like you didn't say the thing you thought in your head.
Yeah, that's how I kind of explained it to her, was like, I just need you to know that, like, I have to express this to you. Like, it hurt my heart. Like, this really hurt me, but I need you to know I didn't say anything. So it's not your fault. But I think what got me doubly mad was that even after we had talked about it upstairs, nothing happened when we went downstairs. And so it was still sitting there after we had a conversation upstairs. It's still sitting there. Now it's like, I was triggered up there pretty bad. And I said, I come down and I see it and I know that has been moved. And now I'm just like, no, you just don't fucking care. You know what I mean? And it's just, I'm like, I'm trying, like, and I have to go like wrap, then I have to wrap her presents with her daughter after having this conversation. So you can only imagine how sad of a freaking Christmas present wrapping session that was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, I didn't speak my truth. And
Can I share a little bit with what
yeah.
you're kind of going through? I have 2 children, a 5 and an 8-year-old as well. And what I've come to understand from that age is that they really need to experience it. They need to experience the conflict or the circumstances of the situation, because there's so many times where I'll try to make a point across and they don't know what I'm talking about. They just are not. They're so connected in their own internal world that they just don't understand. And so I'm having really great win moments with my daughter where I'll tell her my feelings based on something that she said that hurt me. And I try to explain to her, like, hey, what you just said really hurt my feelings. I don't think that you would like it if someone said something that, so basically my daughter said I said something that I didn't say. And I didn't like that. And I didn't want her to continue doing that, especially in school to another friend. But I just shared my experience. And she's like, well, whatever, you said this. And I'm like, okay. And later on, she came back and a friend of a girl at school blamed her for taking something. And she just saw it on the ground and thought it was like a free like there's tattoos going on around in the school. And she grabbed the tattoo and put it on. And that girl's like, you took that tattoo. And Brielle's like, no, I didn't. I just saw that on the ground. And so again, there's this assumption that this girl thought that she knew it was hers and took it. And so she needed to experience it. And later on that day, she came home and was like, Mom, all this stuff happened and they blamed me. And she's like, do you feel sorry for me? And I said, well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but I love you. And I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding. And then later on, she was like, Mom, and now I understand what it felt like for you when I said you said something that you didn't. And I was like, yes. So it's like when you can so that we had to go through the conflict. That's something that I'm finding is that you needed to go through that, your daughter, because that was growth. That's growth between you and your relationship with her. And so we're human. We have emotions. We have all these densities that we're going to have to figure out as we go through New Earth. And that's what I've come to the conclusion. And yes, if we can be mindful that we're not telepathic yet. You know, I had a conflict with my spouse the other day on timing. Apparently we were going to go meet up with somebody and there was no set time, but in his mind, we were leaving out the door at 2:30 and I delayed everybody. And I got very upset because I'm like, I would have never started this had I known we had to leave at a specific time. Just like, you know, Laura saying, like you have to lay out what the situation is for people to be clear before they commit to it, number one, but so they truly understand. So I think that humans are genuinely loving people. Like, I don't think that, especially in our families, you realize, especially your children, how much they love you and they want to just please you and make you happy. And so when they're in their own world, I just think it's just a matter of time and experience. That's just my perspective.
I think it's very powerful, what Laura said and then what you said. Laura, my question was, how do we teach our children compassion and not force compassion? And you basically said it's by being your authentic self and basically leading from the front and showing her how.
Kids don't listen, they watch.
And so that's very powerful. And then you, Danielle, did not let your daughter play into the victim mentality. You said, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but you know, this is what needed to happen for you to learn. And it was just, that's beautiful. And that's how we show our children the way.
My buddy, he's a masterful entrepreneur. He's just brilliant entrepreneurship education. You know, he's so good at helping people start businesses. He's just a wonderful Air Force veteran. And his motto for his one company was always, your happiness depends on your willingness to have awkward conversations. You know, like what level of awkward conversation are you willing to have? What level of boundary are you willing to set? That will determine how happy, like that's almost like your like upper threshold for happiness. And it's like Josh was saying, you know, every time I don't speak that truth, and it's been happening quite a lot. Every time I don't say it, it always comes back around. And I guess that's my lesson in all of this is I have truth in me, express it, and then let it go. I would have just said the thing instead of worrying about what she thought of me saying the thing to her, then this whole thing wouldn't have occurred. But then I also look at it, if I would have said it, then we wouldn't have had this awesome conversation. I would have learned all these valuable lessons and I would have had a chance to expand and grow. So it sounds like New Earth's just going to be perfect the way it is.
Like everybody was saying, I mean, I go back to your question was like, you know, what's that line? I mean, everyone's kind of said in their own ways, you know, the teacher-student relationship is symbiotic. Don't direct, just be a model. If you want to see a courteous world, then just be courteous and let it catch on. I think there's like an AT&T or something commercial, or almost pass it on commercials, where someone does a kind deed and then just like, you know, snowballs, and then the next person remembers it, does a kind deed. And I mean, yeah, I mean, just be that change that you want to be. It's kind of cliche at this point, but it's pretty solid.
It's very true.
Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson.
I think it has a good song.
Can I ask you guys a question? I'm just curious about what you guys think. This was something that I posed and have a hard time still dealing with, but I'm doing the best that I can. So I don't choose to be part of a timeline that's negative for me, or a density that's negative. In my opinion, it's like an old belief that I just can't seem to, I don't like to be there. So it tends to get me angry when someone brings up something from that place where I believe it's false information, propaganda, etc. How do you guys interact with individuals that believe in this narrative where it might be triggering to you? How do you guys stand? And I'm trying to stay the best in peace and just listen and with a big heart, but can you guys share maybe how you would feel if someone presents something to you that you might be like, oh, they're in a victim mode, or they believe in something that's going to save them that might not really be what you feel is the cure for health and wellness?
I just accept people for where they are. I don't like to interfere in people's paths by speaking truth.
I do.
And we're complete opposite in that.
Red pills.
So does it trigger you though, Heather? Like if someone were to come to you and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a ton of Tylenol for this headache because I keep getting headaches and I'm going to keep taking Tylenol. And you might not believe that Tylenol is really going to help you. How do you feel when someone keeps bringing up this narrative, for example?
I feel, obviously, because I wouldn't want to take that Tylenol.
I'm sorry.
At the end of the day, that's their choice. The information about Tylenol is out there.
But do you feel like you just listen?
Yeah, I just listen to people.
She's so good.
I just listen.
She's so good.
I just let them
I'm
be
the opposite.
That's the type of stuff that I'm still being triggered by. So I just want to go around and just get maybe how you guys handled. So you listen.
I listen and just let them be.
And Heather, do you have a Tylenol? Like seriously, what was they ask you for a Tylenol?
Huh?
Would you say if like, Heather, I need a Tylenol? Like if I was your daughter and I'm like, Mom, I need a Tylenol. What would you do?
I'm sorry, I don't have Tylenol.
Oh, Ace.
I've been getting better with it. Like I was a straight, like, I don't give a shit about free will or sovereignty. You're going to know the truth and you're going to listen to me. That's what's going to happen. So, and what I've realized is, what are they doing that's reflecting in me that's causing an emotional disruption? Because at the end of the day, are those people real and do they matter? And because I kind of go back to why is this affecting me? I kind of ask myself that question. It kind of gets me to like not get so triggered and then like come at them. And so what I try to do, and I was doing this during 2016 and 2020 during Trump's presidency, because I was working in Tampa a lot in the entrepreneurship sector. I was doing a lot of events and expos, and I am a boisterous straight shooter, and I have always been that way, and I will continue to be that way. I was able to talk about Trump during times when nobody else could, in a very liberal city that is Tampa, because I did it with two ways. One, I always validate and listen to other people's perspectives, and I don't put them down. Two, I tend to make people laugh, which puts them in their spirit and makes them more open to hear what I have to say. And three, I ask questions. I ask really, really astute questions. So you're very good at that, Danielle. And so you get mad because they're not believing in what you're believing.
Right, right.
But in reality, you haven't even kind of gotten to why they believe in what they believe in. So you're assuming that they're this type of person, but in reality, you don't know. And now that you have this new broadcast and you've come into this new being yourself, that's how I'd pivot. I would just start asking questions and then walk them in circles. And if you're that passionate about giving them the truth, right? You just walk them in circles until they really can't answer their own questions. And then you go, and then at least there's a seed planted. But I can at somebody till till I'm blue in the face, and they're not going to believe me. You know, I could plant 1,000 seeds, but like Laura said, if they're not putting the water on it, and they're not, you know, growing their own plants, then that field's going to be barren, whether we give them 100 seeds, 1,000 seeds, or no seeds at all. So that's how I kind of handle it.
All right, Nicole.
I'll go. So I literally deal with this on a regular basis.
Bless you.
Oh, no, I'm serious, because I have people coming into the hospital into this 3D setting, right? And they're looking for the answer. So first of all, often, I mean, just first of all, to start we call it just a normal EEG routine. There's just like things that we do. The first thing is literally just asking their history. So I'm like literally right off the bat getting everyone to just with what's wrong with it, right? And so right off the bat, I already know what's coming, and the anxiousness, you can feel it, right? And they say it all the time. I can't do this because I'm anxious. My anxiousness is causing this. The world is making me so angry, you know, like everything. So I always have to let them talk until I feel the right moment to drop my seed. It's like you have to wait for the right, not necessarily like topic, but like something to like get in there that's like kind of a neutral umbrella. So in my opinion, I always go back to something that's real and raw, and that's energy. And it really helps the fact that I'm in EEG, literally putting their electrodes on their head, and then could show them their brain activity if they want. So I'm like literally telling you and showing real stuff. So that does help my case a little bit. But I can literally just get back to the basics of, have you ever heard of, and again, Danielle, I've used this a lot, but the rice experiment or the water droplet experiment. I always use those examples, just how we can be affected and are always affecting, and just how we have a part in this. And so by taking on all this negative stuff, you're literally making your vibration lower. And so you're going to be feeling these things and attracting this. But when you realize that there's something, I don't necessarily get into like the agenda, but once I say that there's something within us that once we realize that is energy, and that if we can make it a higher vibration that we know makes us healthy and happy and not away from these things, and just like seeing it from a real energy standpoint, there's always something in there that makes them ask a question back. And then that's when I know that they're curious and they want to know more. A lot of the time by the end of our scenario, which is about a little over an hour together. So we have like, I get to really know these people by the end of every single interaction. We almost always end on like a hug, or like, how can I get a hold of you? You know, it's just like, thank you so much for just the different perspective. It's all it really is. And it can be as simple as any like topic. It doesn't have to be energy, of course, but just like something to make them see something that's not the illusion, I guess.
I think I like how you guys both said somewhere finding that neutral ground, where to put that kind of, I love asking the questions. You're absolutely right. Because they'll just spiral themselves into like, I don't even know. Yeah. And then to your point, finding a neutral spot where they can be open-minded. I like that. All right, Josh, what about you? When this scenario, does it happen to you at all, or you feel like?
Yeah, it's and it's been interesting to see how I've changed in those interactions as time has gone on. But I mean, for me, honestly, I have to try not to laugh, and I feel bad because, you know, like someone will say something and they're in a very, you know, fearful place, or they're bringing it up, and I'm trying not to smile because I'm just thinking in my head, like, I remember when I was there. Like, I remember that. I remember those days. And so yeah, I mean, for me, like you said, it could be a chance for a conversation. I mean, they're bringing it up, so you can engage. I think the biggest thing that if I have to remind myself, if I am not already in that state, is just, they're in a state of fear, but or your piece is your piece. Like you own it and you're in charge of it, and no one else can really disrupt that. If it's disrupted, it's not on them, it's on you. So as long as, or in that moment, kind of like what Nicole was saying too, is just like you can be a neutral, or you can just be neutral in the sense of like, if I maintain a state of peace and that reflects onto them, then maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll do something to kind of diffuse a situation. But yeah, I mean, like Heather said, everyone's at their own pace, everyone's at their own place.
Absolutely.
I've been there. I mean, so it reminds me of where I was. And a lot of times it reminds me of how far I've come, just because those things don't rattle me as much as they used to.
Yeah. I want to hear what Laura has to say, but I think for me, it's close people in my life that I know, how do I continue this relationship? Do I can cut them out? Do I allow them to keep speaking this? Like they're going to continue to try to sway me to believing what they're doing is the right thing. I don't know what I'm supposed to do for them. Like, I'm just like, that's great. Yep. They know where I am. They know where I stand, but they just want to keep telling me this story of things that they're doing for their health when their health is really bad in general. Like they really just don't care about their health because have made themselves so sick. But yet when circumstances of a threat comes, then they feel like, okay, I have to take these precautions. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
Yeah.
my question is, they already know where you stand?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So, to me, once you accept them for where they are and who they are, they will no longer reflect that back to you.
Okay. So what do I have to do to accept them?
Maybe Laura could explain how to do that.
All right, Laura, can you give me some help here?
I don't know how I do it. I just do it. Laura's good at explaining.
There's two parts of the heart, right? So there's the we call it the unanimous place. So the place where all the rivers flow into the ocean, and it's the radiant void. This is where your divine light shows from. Like this is the center of your heart. Thea Elijah, one of my teachers, she calls it the donut hole. It's the donut hole. So we have a donut, it's in our chest. And the radiant void, the divine light comes out through the donut hole. So when I interact with people and I'm in these situations, I'm interacting from the donut hole. Because when I am in the radiant void, when I am in the divine light, and this is with my clients too, right? Because there's a lot of things my clients do where I'm like, man, and when you're in that place though, and you're in that, all you see is you. All you see is the divine light in them. You see their donut hole. You're like, man, same deal. Yeah. So at that point, any feeling of wanting to change a mind or do anything is actually your donut. That's your agenda. So we have the donut hole, but we have a donut that is our agenda, which is our personal feelings about something, our thing that we kind of want to control someone with it. That's the donut. When I'm interacting with someone from divine love, man, if I'm hearing some stuff from the donut, I know it's not a great thing to bring up. Because that's not how I want to interact with people. And yes, the hardest part for sure is when it's someone you personally know. Because when you're in these situations, so the choice, Danielle, I would say that you're going through is very similar for all of us, is do you choose to show those people your donut or just your donut hole? And 9 times out of 10, even close family members, in the last 6-8 months, I'm like, you can just see the donut hole. Like, my donut's my donut and I'm going to protect it and it's mine. I'm choosing not to share that with you. But sure as the sun shines, I'll shine this divine light with you. Great. Let's do that.
You know what you just radiated in your words towards me was like, when that person's talking and they're feeling this, they are truly feeling they're partaking in this because that has got them or kept them where they've been. That's been their safety. So that's all they can relate to. Going back to their experience might be, hey, the Tylenol's always worked for me. Mm-hmm. It's always helped my headaches go away. Mm-hmm. That's all I know. So why would I stop doing it?
One thing I would say though, from my experience, is when I speak in heart voice, when I'm down in my heart,
Mhm.
they can't help but respond from the same place. And so sometimes I'll invite people. My favorite question is, do you think that's really true? Are you really afraid of that? And when you speak from that place, from the divine light, 9 times out of 10, you're accessing their subconscious and they say no without realizing it. I've had people say, I want to say yes, but I kind of want to say no too. Like they're like, my mind is saying yes, but actually, I think I know that it's a no, that no, I'm not actually afraid. So when you can interact with people on that divine level and remind them that that is part of their heart too.
I'm just gonna yell donut hole.
I know. It's one of my favorite things, man.
That's
I mean,
great.
I swear it's why she's my teacher. This first time I heard that analogy, I was like, well, I'm sticking with you, Thea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think what Heather and I have found working with emotional release and helping people work through these stuff and letting go is it's the root. There's something in this interaction, Danielle, that's reflecting something that's rooted in your past that's still a trigger point. And the only reason I feel you're even having to have such a ridiculous interaction with somebody over something like Tylenol, right, is because it's the universe saying you have a gap. Here it is. It's time to let it go. And what I'm getting now, as I said that, is when you can finally let go of getting emotional about people closest to you's decisions, is when you shore up your energy field, and then that's when you're right now. My buddy Andrew uses this. We feel like we're going backwards sometimes because we're actually being pulled back as in a slingshot. And so we're actually going back to review all this stuff that we thought we already accomplished, because we did, but we have to get pulled back in order to then move forward. So we're taking 2 steps back, then to take 1,000 steps forward. So it's kind of like we're in this. I really felt 2022, especially this last 6 months, all those portals I called it a spiritual purgatory. It was the in-between. It's like, what kind of spiritual being do you want to be in New Earth? And we had different paths we could walk. And where you're at now is you found the conscious broadcast. You've created this new person that is authentically you, but yet you still have some things that from your old self that are hanging on.
Yeah.
That's
And
all.
like, right. And I don't think that in some things in my past are still not maybe accepting of my new authenticity. They're still wanting that perception of a person that I was. And I have to be okay with those feelings. And also for me, I feel like I now have all this knowledge, right, that I'm going to help them. And I'm not here for that. I'm here just to be a part of the experience and let them ultimately decide their own free will. It's just hard. It's hard when you no longer, you hear something that you believed in for years and years and years because they were the people that told you this. And then you're like, whoa, I can't hear that anymore. And it brings me down and I want it to stop. They can keep on that journey, but I want it to stop on my end, but I don't want to stop the relationship. That love trumps everything. But those conversations are still, like you said, it's some kind of attachment still.
Yeah.